I never thought I'd become that ex, but I completely lost control after my breakup, crossed every boundary, humiliated myself, hurt someone I loved, and now I'm terrified of the person I became. My obsession turned me into someone I can't even look in the mirror at. I need to get this off my chest because the shame is eating me alive. I'm not here to be scolded. I've already done that to myself 1,000 times. I know what I did was wrong. I know I crossed lines. I know I acted out of panic and fear and insecurity, and it makes me sick to my stomach even admitting that. But I'm writing this because I genuinely want to know if anyone else has ever spiraled like this. Because right now, I feel like the only person who's ever completely lost control of themselves over someone they love. It's been 3 months since the breakup, 6 weeks since he said it was final, 1 month since he blocked me everywhere, and 3 days since he reblocked my number after I had a full meltdown of calls and messages I wish I could take back. Let me back up and explain our situation. We dated for 6 months the first time. Then we broke up. We went no contact for about 4 months. When we reconnected, everything felt healed and mature. For a while, we were actually good, healthy even. We had about 3 months of stability and real connection. But in the last 2 months, cracks started showing. There was more arguing, not screaming, not disrespect, just misunderstandings piling on misunderstandings. And then we started this on-again, off-again limbo for about 4 weeks. He'd reach out and want to talk. I'd shut down and avoid. Then I'd come back around, and he'd be distant. It was like we were taking turns being emotionally available. Finally, we had a long, emotional 3-hour phone call. I told him I still loved him. He told me, "I don't love you. I love things about you, but not you." That sentence shattered something in me. He was vague about wanting to possibly reconnect in the future, but I could tell he was already halfway out the door. I had been doing a lot of reading about attachment styles, and it hit me how much of a fearful avoidant pattern I had. I became obsessed with fixing myself, with somehow healing everything fast enough to save us. I clung to the idea that communication and understanding could fix what broke. I genuinely believed our issues weren't fatal. They were reparable if we just tried. But he didn't want to try anymore. When he said the breakup was final, something inside me snapped. I wasn't angry, I was terrified. Terrified of losing the person I felt safest with. Terrified of being abandoned. Terrified of being alone again. And instead of handling that fear with any grace or dignity, I lost my grip. I reached out too much. I texted too much. I called. I panicked. I acted like someone I don't even recognize as myself. I hate who I became. He blocked me everywhere. I don't blame him. Then, after a month, he unblocked my number. Not with a text. Not a call. Just unblocked. And that tiny glimmer of hope destroyed the last bit of self-control I had left. I messaged him, called him, tried to talk, tried to explain, tried to force closure out of someone who didn't want to give it. 3 days later, blocked again. And this time I think it's permanent. Now I'm left sitting in the wreckage of my own actions. I know I wasn't myself. I know I acted out of fear and desperation. I know it wasn't healthy. I know I should have kept my distance, respected his boundary, respected myself. But I didn't. And I hate that I didn't. I don't know how to even describe what happened to me these last few months without feeling like I'm peeling off my own skin. I turned into a version of myself I didn't recognize, someone desperate, panicked, irrational, and completely consumed by the fear of losing him. I wish I could say I handled things with dignity. I didn't. I spiraled. The worst part is that I watched myself do it. It was like being trapped behind glass while my own hands typed out messages I knew I shouldn't send, while my own thumb hit call, again and again like it was the only button that existed. I'm not exaggerating when I say I called him dozens of times in one night. 30 calls. Maybe more. I can't even look at the call log anymore. It makes me want to crawl out of my body. It didn't feel like wanting attention or being needy. It felt like sheer panic, like my brain had short-circuited, and the only way to stop the internal alarm was to hear his voice, even if he was angry, even if he didn't want to talk. Every ignored call made the panic worse, like withdrawal. I logically understood what I was doing was wrong, but emotionally, I was drowning. And drowning people don't think, they claw. And the texting, God. Paragraphs. Essays. Apologies. Explanations. Begging. Promising I'd change. Promising I was changing. Trying to remind him of us. Trying to make him remember who we were before everything got messy. Every time I sent a message, a piece of my dignity went with it. I knew I was humiliating myself, but the fear of silence was stronger than the shame. And the thing is, he didn't fully let me go at first. That's the part that kept me in the loop. He didn't block me right away. He would answer just enough to keep hope alive. Little half sentences like, I don't know, I need time, I'm confused, maybe we'll talk later. I still think about you. I don't know if I'm ready to move on. Those crumbs were torture. They were enough to make me believe there was something to hold on to, something still alive between us. And, because last time we broke up we did end up getting back together, my brain clung to that possibility like it was oxygen. And then suddenly he was cold, blunt, detached. I poured out my heart and he told me, I don't love you. I love things about you, but not you. I don't think anything has ever hit me harder. It was like someone reached into my chest and pulled out every bit of hope I had left. But even then, even after that, I couldn't stop the spiral. I kept trying, kept reaching, kept thinking if I could just get him to talk long enough, I could fix it, fix me, fix us. And then he finally blocked me. And the silence was like a mirror being shoved in my face. The truth is, I became someone I never thought I'd be. Someone who lost control. Someone who crossed boundaries. Someone who made fear and anxiety louder than reason. I've never felt this ashamed. I've never felt this scared of my own behavior. I've never felt this alone. I keep replaying everything in my head, every message, every call, every moment where I could have stopped myself but didn't. I don't even recognize the person I became in those weeks. It feels like watching a version of me that had no sense of reality, just raw panic wearing my skin. I never thought I was capable of that level of obsession, of that level of emotional chaos. I always saw myself as someone who stayed calm, someone who walked away before losing control. But suddenly, I was someone showing up at a man's house 2 hours away, someone who couldn't put her phone down, someone who was begging for crumbs just to stay afloat. And the worst part? A small part of me still clung to the hope he was giving me. He didn't shut me down. He didn't block me until the very end. He said things that made my brain believe I wasn't delusional for still caring. When he told me we might talk later, it fed that terrified part of me that couldn't let go. When he said he wasn't sure, or that maybe after time apart we could revisit things, it made every boundary I was trying to rebuild crumble instantly. I know it's not his fault. He was confused too. But I can't deny how much that confusion fed the fantasy that kept me spiraling. When he finally said it was over, really over, something inside me snapped again. Hearing him talk about another girl, hearing him speak with certainty for the first time, it felt like being dropped into a void. I know it sounds dramatic, but my whole body reacted like I was dying. My chest physically hurt. I couldn't breathe. It was like every fear I've ever had came crashing down at once. And instead of grounding myself, instead of stepping back, I drowned in it. I texted him. I called. I panicked so hard I genuinely thought I was losing my mind. And he blocked me again. Rightfully. Honestly, mercifully. Since then, I've been sitting with the reality of what I did. And it's brutal. I cross lines no one should cross, especially not with someone they say they love. I made someone feel trapped and overwhelmed. I let my anxiety and my fear dictate my actions until I was completely out of control. And even though I understand why I spiraled OCD, abandonment fear, rejection sensitivity, attachment wounds, it doesn't excuse how I acted. It doesn't take away the pain I caused or the boundaries I shattered. My psychologist tells me that people with severe OCD and rejection trauma can experience panic-seeking behavior, where the fear of loss hijacks your brain and makes you cling, even when you logically know it's wrong. But knowing the psychology doesn't undo the damage. Understanding the mechanism doesn't erase the shame. I hate that this is part of my story now. I hate that someone I truly cared about now associates me with chaos and desperation. I hate that I reached out to his sister, that I showed up at his house sobbing, that I became the version of myself I never wanted to be. But I'm trying to use this as my rock bottom because there's nowhere lower to go from here. I'm going to therapy weekly. I'm working on emotional regulation, on attachment wounds, on recognizing when panic is lying to me. I'm trying to build back the version of myself that I can actually respect. I know I can't fix what happened. I can't apologize anymore. I can't undo the past. All I can do is make sure I never become that person again. I'm not here to rewrite the story to make myself look better. I'm not here to pretend that what I did wasn't frightening, overwhelming, and deeply unhealthy. I'm not even here to make him the villain, even though parts of me want to, because it would be easier to cope if this were simple, if I could just say he hurt me first and be done with it. But the truth is so much messier than that. The truth is that I crossed lines. I spiraled. I lost myself in a way I didn't think was possible, and now I'm left trying to figure out how to live with all of it. The hardest part of all of this is the crushing shame that follows me everywhere. It's like waking up every day and remembering a crime you committed in a blackout, except I wasn't blacked out. I was painfully, humiliatingly aware of everything I was doing. I watched myself sending those messages, watched my fingers hit call, again and again, watched myself break down and beg someone who had already emotionally checked out. And every time, I could feel the part of me that knew better screaming in the background. But it wasn't enough. Fear was louder. Panic was louder. Rejection was louder. And now all I'm left with is the aftermath. The guilt. The self-disgust. The constant question looping in my head. What the hell is wrong with me? But here's the part I'm finally starting to understand. Slowly, painfully, through therapy, through reflection, through sitting alone with the uncomfortable truth.
It wasn't really about him.
It was about what being abandoned triggered in me. It was about wounds I never acknowledged, patterns I never healed, fears I never learned to soothe. He became a symbol, not a person. A lifeline. A safety rope I thought was keeping me from drowning, when in reality, I was pulling us both under. And yet, even knowing that, even recognizing the emotional chaos for what it was, I still feel like a monster. I still feel like the crazy ex stereotype come to life. I still feel like I need to crawl out of my own skin when I remember how desperate and out of control I became. I still lie awake replaying every mistake in my mind like a horrible movie that I can't turn off. But here's what snapped me awake. When he finally said he was done, when he told me he had a date lined up with someone new, my heart didn't break the way I expected. It cracked, yes. It stung. But then something strange happened. Something clarifying. I realized I didn't miss him as much as I missed the idea of fixing what was broken. I didn't miss us. I missed the fantasy I had built. This self-invented version of him who would someday appreciate me if I just proved myself enough. Looking back, he constantly talked about how I needed to be fixed, how I needed to change, how I wasn't emotionally mature enough, healed enough, stable enough. I internalized all of that. I thought if I worked hard enough, improved fast enough, became better, then it would prove I deserved love. I made him my mirror. I made him my judge. I let his opinion of me become my entire self-worth. But that's done now. Because after all of this, after the breakdowns, after the panic spirals, after humiliating myself in ways I still can't fully process, I realized something that feels almost like a betrayal to the version of me who was begging on the phone at 3 a.m. I don't love him. Not really. I loved the version of him in my head. I loved the emotional highs, the dopamine, the hope, the possibility. I loved the validation that came from being wanted by someone who kept me unsure. It wasn't love. It was limerence, obsession, attachment anxiety, masquerading as devotion. So I'm done. Not just with him, but with everything that turned me into someone I didn't recognize. I'm done calling. I'm done texting. I'm done begging or chasing or trying to explain myself to someone who doesn't even want to understand me. I'm done letting shame rot me from the inside out. I'm building boundaries now, not for him, but for me. I'm working with a psychologist. I'm educating myself. I'm learning emotional regulation, attachment healing, and how to sit with distress without erupting into panic. I'm not dating anyone until I've unlearned these patterns. I'm not letting my fear of abandonment control my behavior again. I'm not becoming that version of myself ever again, even if it means staying single for a long time. And for the first time in months, that idea doesn't scare me. It actually feels like freedom. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes that will haunt me for a long time. But I'm human. I'm trying. And I'm finally starting to believe that maybe, with enough work and enough honesty, I can grow into someone I'm not ashamed of. I just hope that sharing this, every ugly detail, every raw truth, helps me take one more step toward forgiving myself. And maybe, hopefully, help someone else feel less alone too.